I'm here with Sandra, an experienced nurse who was part of the convoy to Canberra.
Ryan, I love you so much. I do look like Sandra Bullock some days, or act like her.
Yeah.
I feel like I do. And I want a bus, because then I can have my own signature down the side of that one saying exactly what it is that I want to say. It's about health and well-being. And I'm sick and tired of the whole scenario and the narrative going the way of the government. We're always talking up their drugs. And people are going like, we shouldn't be afraid of them though. I want to start talking about health and well-being and how that is more important than anything else that's happening here in Australia at the moment. I know around the world that a lot of people are turning to that focus because we're needing repair in our bodies after this onslaught of tyranny. Our emotional well-being has really been affected, and our bodies fall into line with that over time. We get, adrenaline fatigued, and the stress can really overcome quite a lot of our organs and our minds at times. So I don't want to focus on that. What I really want to do is actually focus in on the reason, and the real reason, I believe, for why this is happening as soon as it is. It was brought forward, this whole pandemic, by a number of years. And I believe that it's because most people have woken up with the ideas that God is our creator and has created everything for us to consume here on the planet if it's green and it flowers. If we can turn away from the petrochemical industry for our life-saving medicine, we'll be doing a lot better, much quicker.
So what was your experience at the Canberra Convoy? Do you want to run us through what happened there at Parliament?
At Parliament that day, yes I would. First of all, I'd like to say that I did volunteer as a first aider, first responder, and I've been working down in the building, helping people overcome their heat stroke and that sort of stuff after the day's event. But I was able to get a lift in the convoy up to Parliament House, and with a wonderful man called Paul. He'd been very supportive with the whole movement here in Camp Epic, the exhibition centre here in Canberra. And I was able to get in his truck, and he said, yeah, get on board, and we had great conversation on the way there. And as we went up the hill, there was a little bit of controversy as to whether we were allowed to do it up the driveway, but we were told that we could go anywhere we wanted, and we chose to go up to the front of Parliament like any normal person wanted to do on the day. We all wanted to go there, and we want to claim the house back. That's what we wanted to do. But as it turns out, it's a Luciferian cult that built it. I'm not quite sure why anybody would want to take it over, and that was reflected in the manner of the police as we were arriving up to the top. They stopped us just before we got to the height of the drive, and smashed the window on Paul's side. I believe that he was lacerated. Glass flew across into my clothes and across my face, and before I knew it, there was pepper spray coming in as well. I bailed out, and I can tell you it's a very long drop from the top of that. So my eyes were affected, and I was trying to get down, but I managed to get to the bottom okay. And there were people at the bottom seeing this smoke come out through the door. The door shut, and Paul was still in there. When I gathered my bearings, I figured I should open the door again because he was trapped in there. And as I did, I could see him backing away from his window like they were trying to pull him through. He quickly got down and stood there looking very stressed and like surprised, adrenaline. He was firing, and anyway, I offered him some water. He managed to get that on his eyes, and he was okay. And then I turned around, and he was gone. So I don't even know where Paul is.
Do you think Paul might have been injured if they managed to pull him through that window?
Oh, he was injured. He was using a baton. Like the copper I saw him, federal police officer, he pulled out his baton, and that scared the bejeebies out of me because I know what they do with that.
Right.
And I had somebody on my door stopping me from exiting the vehicle. I was saying g'day to that fella, and I'm like, oh, what are you going to do to me? But I was just calm. His name was Paul. If you're out there listening, Paul, thank you for remaining calm and not assaulting me like Paul was assaulted by the AFP. He ended up getting hit on the head because that glass, the glass was right there, and he hit that window about 5 times with his baton.
Have you heard any feedback about how Paul's condition is now? Is he well?
I haven't had any feedback. I'm hoping that he's okay because I do believe that they kept the truck, and he wasn't allowed to to continue on his journey with it. That was the only thing he owned in his entire life. That's all he's got. And he was here, and he was really supporting the crowd here. We had how many hundreds of thousands of people, you know?
We estimate there was a couple of million actually total.
Paul was a really important part of that.
That truck was a big icon actually.
Zeus 1. He called it
Zeus 1.
And I can tell you, when you're sitting up in the top of that, you do feel like you're on top of the world. And it's a very safe space to be, is what I was considering, particularly considering that it was a convoy, Velvet Revolution, Lynn Bennett, hello Lynn, that had organised the entire situation. So I'm really excited that I was able to ride one of the truckers. We did it together. I was there. I was a first aid responder, and it turns out that we were the only ones that got assaulted on the day. I did have a conversation with the police for a few hours. Some of them didn't want to talk to me, but I did walk the line, and I was saying, look, that's not fair. You invited us here. You told us we could drive up here, and then we were assaulted. What was that about? By the end of it, I said I wanted an apology, and as I was walking out, there were two younger AFP officers who did actually be nice. And they did say, look, we do apologise for that, and you can write to the AFP, to the Minister, through the website, and make a formal complaint. Anyway, sorry, there's another excited traveller, another excited person who's come to Canberra. And they're
Wonderful.
obviously very excited about towing their
So
trailer.
what was your main motivation for going to the convoy?
My motivation for coming here was to save children, to save our children, to save grandchildren, if you have any yet, your great-grandchildren, because this is an ongoing assault that has been going on since they invented penicillin. So, and the vaccines in this country have been produced to harm children. They have not been produced to save your life. And I can tell you, I worked for CSL and GSK for a year each, big pharma companies, and I did that back before 2010. And back then, they were already planning for a pandemic. And I went to a conference with CSL that highlighted that.
What did you see that showed you that they were preparing for this?
Well, they showed us a facility down at CSL. They showed us how it was that they were creating the vaccines for influenza, any type of influenza. And we've had the practice runs with the swine flu and the avian flu. They were practice runs for this big event. And they've been collecting DNA for a very long time. So all of these drugs that they're promoting at the moment is a health initiative. They're not a health initiative. And if anybody's got a doubt about that, they haven't done any research. That's my message to everybody. As a nurse that has looked after people her entire life, almost 18 years old, I started my nursing career in Queensland. Queensland state government at the time trained me, and we were sisters. We were taught we were sisters. And we looked after each other. And yeah, you know, some of the charges, they were really full on, but they really taught us how to be super critical and how to save lives and how to make sure that when you send someone home, that they stayed well. So you'd give them nutritional advice, you'd give them the opportunities to look at their disease progression and try to limit the issues or the poisons they were putting in on their body. That's how I was trained, to be super highly critical of policy.
And how's that environment changed now in the hospitals?
It's much different. It's much different. I wouldn't want to be a patient in a hospital right now. I actually had to go into an accident emergency a couple of times for, mechanical strains. And I was totally like, we don't care, really. You can lie there for a little bit. We don't really care about you. And I had a spinal injury that had been renewed. And I just said, I'd really like to go to the PA just to have an expert look after it and have a full-on consult. Nah, we're not transferring you there. No way, laugh, laugh, laugh. And this was an emergency ED practitioner, a doctor who was a 2IC. He's laughing at me. Now, he was Chinese. I don't think I like Chinese doctors in our emergency centres. Not the one that I went into anyway. It was a Redlands hospital. 20 years a nurse. There's no way. I just sat back and said, yes, doctor, no doctor, 3 bags full, doctor. I was looking after the patients and I was making sure they were getting the best care. And the Queensland State Government sisters and their health alignment with having good conversations and communications flowing between healthcare professionals was more important than conversation, not just do as you're told. Do as you're told, and that's what these nurses are doing at the moment. And they'll say that's all we were allowed to do. We were trained in university. Central Communist Party of China owned the universities up in Queensland, or they did. So every nurse that went through there was being reprimanded if they did not follow protocol and they did not follow exactly what the narrative was. So, and you know, in China, their ideas about, or the Communist Party's ideas about what a person is or humanity, what that represents is not what we think. It's totally different.
And what's the fastest way, do you think, to improve the medical care system we have in Australia now?
Shut it down and reopen tomorrow. We can all move in. We know what we're doing. I think that the most important thing is that herbalists, naturopaths who have not encouraged their clientele to go and get jabbed, because I know that that's happened. They've been infiltrated as well. But herbalists and any person that has a keen interest in health and well-being should be running centres across the nation, because that's all they care about when you walk in. They just want to know that you're going to walk out of here and feel great. That's different. That's how I would flip it. And I know that there's some policymakers out there who are really looking forward to people like me and you, Ryan, and then these people that are here today, to actually force that forward. We're taking that with us. We're not leaving that thought behind. That is going to be the new way in health and well-being and healthcare in Australia. I truly believe that. It won't be about disease progression anymore. It'll be about preventing that oxidation in our bodies and reducing the stress on our organs so that we live a long and vital life.
Thank you so much. And and do you have any final messages for our viewers?
Yes, I do. Tell ScoMo to get out. I would swear on camera, but I'm not allowed. So, and I don't think it's a good idea because it brings the frequency down. And I would like to actually add to that too, that ScoMo and his ministry are not in a narrative flow that suits our situation. They're not in it. So all of this division that's been going on, if there has to continue, I think we need to redirect the thought and evaluate what they're doing in the Parliament, what they're not doing in the Parliament, and how that affects our children. Let's get back to that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Can I just say that in that there was